Hello, English readers, and welcome to Lydie's Book Club August live read along. I'm Lydie Bureau. I'm an English teacher in France, and I'm also the founder of Lydie's Book Club, in which I host live readings of adaptations of classics of English literature and contemporary novels. Each month, we read and explore a different book for all levels of English. And once a week, I meet the members of the book club in a live workshop via Zoom to discuss the chapters of the book that we have read over the week. In this book club, I tend to prioritize books that are written by women. And this month, we are reading the contemporary novel Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. This book is her first novel, and we read it in its integral text. So it means that you need to have a C1 advanced level of English to be able to appreciate the reading and the understanding of the novel. So bear that in mind. And if you'd like to know more about the novel and Julia Armfield's work, I invite you to listen to the podcast episode 23, an introduction to Julia Armfield and Our Wives Under the Sea, which is available on this YouTube channel and also on the Spotify podcast, Read in English. Today, it is session 7. Hello, Keti. Thank you for joining. And we are going to read pages 137 to 155. And you can find all the upcoming dates of the live readings on my website or on my Instagram. You can rewatch all the live readings here on this YouTube channel and also on Spotify on the podcast Read in English. And in addition to these live reading sessions, I'm hosting 3 live workshops based on the novel, so that the members of the book club have an opportunity to improve their speaking skills and share their views and develop their critical thinking skills. These workshops are hosted on Zoom, so you have to become a member of the book club to be able to attend those live workshops. So all the links are in the description of this video. And also, I'm pleased to announce that you can now purchase the 3-part live workshop of Daisy Jones and the Six, which is our July live read along. And again, we read this book in its integral text. So these 2 books were the first time, were actually an experiment at the book club, because we tend to read, so far we've been reading only adaptations of integral text. And this summer we said, why not try and read the original text. So you need to have a C1 advanced level in English to be able to appreciate the text also. And once you purchase the workshop, you just need to create your login, and you will get a private access to the videos to watch at your own time. So it's very easy to get into, to have access to. And this way, if you're not sure about joining the book club, then this will give you a little bit of an insight of what it's like to attend those live workshops and be part of the book club as well. Right, so let's get started. I'm going to start with, as usual, with a quick recap of the previous session. So yesterday, we read pages 101 to 134. It was quite a long session, so well done for all of you who managed to watch the video. No, actually, I realized that I still haven't uploaded. Oh, I'm so sorry. My apologies. I still haven't uploaded the replay of the live reading. So, well, good luck for people who will watch this the video next. I'm sorry, I will do it today. I will upload today both sessions, so the one from yesterday and the one that we've done today. So my apologies. Okay, so yesterday we let me get to the page. So lots of stuff, a lot of reminiscing for Miri and Leah, because this is what this book is all about. Through this tough experience that these two women, this women couple, are experiencing, that makes them reflect on and on their life, on what used to be their relationship, especially for Miri, and it also reminds Miri about her relationship, about her mom who recently died, and all the memories that she had with her before she died. So here it is another passage in Miri when we learn that that when she was young she struggled with relationship with boys, and it's only when she started dating Leah, when she met her, that she started enjoying sexual relations, and that she got a different perceptions of herself, and the fact that it wasn't necessarily her the problem, or that there wasn't any problem with her, but it's just that she didn't meet the right persons, the right people, and now she reflects that since Leah got back, they actually do not have any sexual relation together anymore. If you remember, they sleep in different rooms, so it shows that they don't really share intimacy anymore. After that, we learn also that Miri, and that what we notice also is the main narrator in this novel is Miri, because her chapters are much longer usually than Leah. So it reflects also the fact that Leah doesn't. We learn from Miri that Leah doesn't talk anymore. So the few times, the brief chapters in which Leah is the narrator really reflect this idea of the fact that she doesn't talk much as well, and she doesn't talk a lot to Miri, and I lost what I wanted to say, sorry. So that also reflects, and also, yes, Leah often and the topic of Leah's speech, well, when she in Leah's chapters, the main topics are often related to the reminiscence of what happened in the vessel, and the sequence of events that happen, and how she felt at that point, and talking about her the other crew members, Matteo and Jelka. and her relationship with them. So it's very much centered. So Leah's talk or text is much more centered around the mission, briefly about her parents and her relationship with her father, more specifically, and mainly about her relation towards nature, towards the ocean, and her and how and the connection that she had with the ocean from a very early age. Page 110, for example, it's Miri's in Miri's chapter, and we learn that she found when she thought that at the time when Leah wasn't back yet, she thought that Leah had died, actually, and because it was probably 4 or 5 months since she was gone, and she didn't have any news. Remember, she couldn't reach the center. They wouldn't give her any. She would find always the voicemail, and she couldn't get any information from them or any other way. So she was completely by herself on her own, and she tries to find support online, and she found this first support group, I mean, sort of forum kind of, and kind of group, and those it was those women who would imagine their husbands being in space, and they would role play those scenarios in which they would never come back. They came back in a different, and some would imagine that their husband never came back or whatever. And here, page 110, she found another group, an online group, in which this time people are sharing their grief and their feelings about the loved ones that they have lost. So they have members of their family who have disappeared. So here it's not imaginary stories anymore, but there are real stories, and heartbreaking ones, and which makes it even more difficult for Miri to cope with, or to just digest and read those comments on the fact that these people have they've lost their members of their family, and how it's difficult for them to cope with the disappearance and the loss, and the fact that they're missing their loved ones and not knowing where they are. After that, we learn from Leah at some point that she dreamt about Miri. The very few, she mentions Miri very briefly. Actually, here, page 113, is just the second time that she mentions Miri, and explain and tells us that she dreamt about her, but she doesn't dwell too much on it. She doesn't expand much on Miri, really. She moves on to to another subject, to another topic, and talk about the mission again, and how she felt and what happened with the other members of the crew. She evokes this very renowned biologist and explorer called Sylvia Earle, who was the first woman who brought with her an all-female crew into a deep sea mission. And probably she was the first who used the tektite habitat, this is how it's called. The fact that it's actually, Leah explains it actually, that it's an underwater laboratory and living station designed to observe and study marine life for a long period of time. So this woman, Sylvia Earle, was actually the first woman. And I believe, similarly to the other famous people that she mentioned before, or the other figures that or role model that she mentions, that Julia Armfield mentions, and Leah by extension, are real people. So I believe that this Sylvia Earle actually existed. It would make sense because the other people that she mentioned, like this man, this explorer called the Swedish explorer, also was a real person. So I would suggest that this person really existed as well. And there were various magazines, articles, like the New Yorker, who talked about the exploration, the deep sea explorations of and the work of Sylvia Earle. So that makes sense. Again, Miri is reminiscing of her mother and the last time that she spent with her. Also, I remember that her mother, Miri's mother, didn't really. It seemed like she didn't really accept the fact that her daughter loved another woman, because at some point we learned that her mother only asked twice about Leah, so it seems like she wasn't very in favor of this relationship, although they were both married. They were married, but mentalities is difficult to change. So it takes time, and it seems like her mother wasn't really happy about their relationship. Then there is this suspicious call. Also, we don't know much about it, so maybe today we will know more. So there is at a certain point, which there is a moment in which Miri is hanging. She's picking up the phone, and no one is talking, and she thinks that it's Carmen who talked to who called her, but Carmen says that it wasn't her. So it's a bit of a mystery here. And also we learned that they stopped. So Miri and Leah stopped going to the therapist at the center, because Leah is not able to go to the center anymore, and it's getting very difficult for Miri to get Leah out of the house. So they agree with the therapist to do Skype sessions. But again, it doesn't seem to work because Leah just locks herself in the bathroom and she doesn't leave the bathroom. She's always there. And the therapist tells Miri that the session can't work if she's not there as well. So that's not going much further here. It feels like Leah and Miri's relationship is a bit stuck. And finally, we notice that at the end of the midnight zone, because yesterday we finished that zone, and we will start the abyssal zone now. We learned that although we suspected that Leah was somehow becoming a fish or a marine creature, we have here in this last chapter of Miri, that Leah's body is actually mutating or transforming. Her skin and the color of her skin and the texture of her skin is changing, and Miri senses that Leah feels much better when she is in the water, so in the bathtub. So she puts her back in the bathtub at some point. She starts realizing that it feels like Leah's new natural it feels almost like her natural habitat. The water is her natural habitat now. So right, let's start the reading of the abyssal zone. Okay, starts with Leah's chapter. Matteo slept, and then I did. And when I did, I dreamed in an odd, compressed fashion, as though there were too much water on top of me for my thoughts to move about in their usual way. I dreamt about long corridors and about my own spine and about Miri, drawing a finger down my neck and then stopping. And then stopping. And when I woke, my vision, I had retracted to a couple of pine hole, and everything took several minutes to adjust. We tried the comms panel again and again. We took apart the main deck piece by piece in search of what had gone wrong. We discussed unreasonable ways of orchestrating a rescue. Imagine exerting enough pressure on the hull that the craft began to roll. Imagine causing a controlled explosion whose aftershocks might be seen from the surface. We sat sometimes as though unintroduced at a dinner party, each waiting for the other to offer the name. On occasion, I would awake from sleeping to find Jelka muttering to herself in the kitchen or the wash stall or the doorway to the main deck, and it would take me seconds to get it clear in my head that she was praying. I remember that Jelka has a keen interest in saints, different saints, all sorts of saints. So yes, she's a believer, I would say. And yeah, and if I remember well, she is Catholic, so she has strong belief. Okay, let's continue. Your God, Matteo said to her once, has put us in a shitty situation. His voice had taken on a tone of disbelief that seemed to follow him about our shared space, a disbelief that stopped up the other aspect of his personality and made him curt and difficult. I want, he said a lot, to eat some normal food. I want a cocktail olive and a pizza and a pack of Melba toast. I want to stretch my legs. I want to see some fucking weather. I wanted to tell him that, of course, I felt that way as much as he did, but it seemed unkind to nagging in a desperate situation. I wanted to tell him that, of course, I felt afraid, but it seemed too unlucky to say the thing out loud. I came to regard my role on board as something akin to peacemaker, although Matteo and Jelka were never exactly fighting, only scratching about one another in a manner I sought to diffuse. I tried to fill silences, to told stories to drown out the madness of the situation. Once a month, I said, when I was little, my father would pack up the Volvo, throw me into the passenger seat, and take me out to the beach. We didn't do much when we're there. We'd just collect pieces of sea glass and cowrie shells. We'd walk the length of the beach, marking our progress via these beach huts, which ran along the top of the sands. We could tell how far you could tell how far you'd walked by the color of the beach house. You were lucky. The beach house you were looking at. The hut, painted peach, marked the midway point between car park and headland. The hut striped white and blue. The hut, striped white and blue, was 3/4 point, and so on. When we'd walked far enough, we'd go down to the water and eat sandwiches and look for beached barrel jellyfish. There always seem to be so many. They're pink when you see them in the water, but they also go blue when they wash up on shore. Thing is there is basically nothing to a jellyfish. Almost all what you picture when you picture a jellyfish is actually just water. This thin skin, and then this hood around its reproductive organs and its digestive system. Basically, the second a jellyfish is washed up, it starts to die because the water starts to evaporate. It only takes a few hours in the sun. And that's interesting when you see that actually, yeah, when jellyfish are not in the water anymore, they die. Yes, I know all of that, Jelka interrupted. But thank you for the biology lesson. Ooh. I looked at her, blinked, looked away. It hadn't occurred to me that this was a story I was more used to telling Miri. In my head, I think I'm often telling Miri stories, logging away information or things I've seen in order to tell her about them later. Even trapped as I was down there, I was still doing this, taking everything in with one eye on how to recount it. I think I've trained myself to look at things this way, as if for her, as well as me, although now writing this, I'm not sure I really want her to know about it. I can't say whether this is a story I actually want to tell. The noise had retreated since the first time, but returned again, intermittently and then often. It came possibly to tell one time period from another, only by virtue of when the noise sounded and when it stopped. Sometimes I would fall asleep in silence and wake to the noise, sometimes vice versa. When it came, it winnowed out around the size of the craft, cricked like floorboards, like straining rope, like something wrapped around our hull and pressing inwards. Sometimes I thought about what it might be, but more often I didn't. So remember, there is the smell of burning meat as well. So don't know yet what it is. Once I came through to the main deck to find Matteo with his cheek against the window, not looking upwards, staring at the floor. When I asked him what he was doing, he told me he'd been trying to get cool, gestured to the cheek, not touching the window, as if inviting me to touch. I don't feel hot, he said when I asked him. I just feel weird. You know, the feeling right before your leg falls asleep. There was nothing beyond the window, the way there was always nothing. It made me feel restless, anxious to see something move. This was meant to be a search trip, I wanted to grumble. How are we supposed to conduct research on something we can't see? The water was directionless in this blackness, moving no visible way. It was difficult, particularly if you looked for too long, to imagine there was water around us at all. We ate a lot of concentrates. Oh, it's, like in canned stuff or in concentrated food, I guess. We ate a lot of concentrates, drank purified water. There was more of everything than we had expected. At one point, I unearthed a bottle of wine in one of the food lockers, though I stowed it away as soon as I found it. Deceptive, this space, the woman from the center had told us. But when she showed us around, rapping her knuckles against one of the lockers, designed that way, space efficiency, you'll be shocked how much you can stow. She had spoken like that about everything, the way you might try to sell someone a car. The lightning, she said, was designed to enhance vitamin D metabolization. The ceilings, she said, were designed to give the greatest possible illusion of space. Unsinkable, she said, tapping her toe against the bulkhead and then correcting herself. I mean, not unsinkable, obviously. Time passed. However, little happened to hurry it along. It still passed. Days, weeks, I couldn't tell you. We ate and slept and tried the comms panel. Jelka and I did jumping jacks in the rear chamber, kicked our knees up to our chests to get the blood flowing, lay down and bicycled our legs in the air. I felt important. In the dull way, to remain active, important to tidy away after eating, important to remain awake until it became absolutely necessary to sleep again. Sometimes Matteo would draw a great grid of dots on a piece of paper and convince one of us to play dots and boxes. Sometimes Jalka would sit with her legs up on one of the benches and stare into space for what felt like hours at a stretch. It's insane, of course, that we did so little. Insane how little it occurred to us to do. Certainly we were trapped, but in retrospect, It's still hard to imagine the kind of lethargy that seemed to grip us. I can't explain it, except to say that inaction felt obvious, a decision already made by someone else. The basic truth of the situation occurred to me only as if shouted across some great distance and barely heard. I felt afraid, of course, but beneath this, still, in some sense, quietly removed. I suppose a body has to find a way to cope with panic. I don't know how this works. Panic, as I've said, is a waste of oxygen. I thought about Miri sometimes, trying not to because of the very particular ache it summoned, and then did it away. It did it anyway. I thought about Miri describing the type of cat she'd like to adopt, about Miri brushing her hand over my hair in the way she often did. When I couldn't think about Miri anymore, I gave up and thought instead about the imprints of the liquid jellyfish, the brown and pink remainder, only imprints fading to nothing on a white expanse of shore. Now, Miri's chapter. Years ago, when we were still new, Leah took me out to a bar, and then to another bar, and then to a late night movie where we bought popcorn and sat together in the dark. The movie was a 60s thriller. The mutiny crew of a tramp steamer set adrift on a sea of carnivorous seaweed, beset by time-traveling Spanish conquistador, giant hermits, crabs, octopuses, and sharks. Every time another obviously puppeted monster or oversized plastic snail appeared on screen, we both shrieked with laughter. I can't believe you've never seen this movie, Leah hissed. It's so terrible. I used to watch it with my dad in the dark. I used to watch it with my dad. Leah hissed, in the dark, I kissed her and she tasted like popcorn. I think you're perfect, I said, like an idiot. And she was kind and let me pretend I hadn't said it. We came back out into the open air around midnight, and Leah gave me her coat, pulled me close by the lapels, and then interrupted herself with a laugh because she could kiss me. People do this in movies, she said, but now I just feel daft. A dribble of fine gold chain around her neck, the chilly flush at the tips of her ears. You know, she said, with the portentousness of the evenings, many whiskeys. I love going into the cinema when it's still light and then coming out in the dark. Makes me think about the way a city is never the same. I mean, the way everything changes. Every night, every minute, it's over, and things will never be the same again. I put my hands over her hands, still fisted on the lapels of the coat she had given me, and made her pull me forwards. That makes no sense, I told her, and she kissed me in the street. The therapist sends us the bill for the session Leah missed and a note requesting clarity on whether we plan to continue. The center apparently are willing to bankroll sessions attended, but not sessions skipped or rescheduled. Leah is in the bath when I get the invoice, though she has left the door unlocked, which is new. When I come in, she looks up head back against the lip of the tub, and her skin seems to shrink and then reshape before me. The stretch and settle of her rubbed eye, briefly off center, but nothing unusual at all. I sit down on the toilet seat and we regard one another for another moment. No, one another for a moment. What are we supposed to do? I say at last. But what's happening? I don't want a doctor, she says, anticipating my suggesting it again. But what if it get worse? It isn't. She isn't being unkind or sharp or dismissive, not like she has been recently. Her tone is perfectly reasonable, even kind. Beneath it, however, there is little enough in the way of feeling, a chilly blank, where the rest of her voice, as I know it should be. There is nothing of the previous night, when she dipped her head into my shoulder. Something has crested the surface between us and sunk again, the water closing over its head. She moves her hands through the water, the soft and semi-translucent blue at her hip and thigh. And I know she's only talking because I am making her talk. I don't know how you can know that, I continue. And she shrugs, a squeeze and pulse of a natural color around her neck and shoulder as the water is massing beneath the upper layers of her skin. I feel basically okay today, she says, then keeps talking before I can interrupt. And when I don't, it usually passes. I look at her, at the way she tries to smile and then seems to give up, ducking beneath the water and holding herself there. I look at her and feel unusually sure that the Leah of the previous night was my Leah, but that this one almost certainly isn't. If I cut her, I'm not altogether sure she would bleed. I feel at once a sense of cavernous terror at being left alone and then set it aside. I reach for the plastic vase on the windowsill and I ask if she wants me to wash her hair. Mm-hmm. When we first moved in together, Toby and Sam helped us with the boxes and afterwards sat on the floor and drank wine and ate oven pizzas off mismatched plastic plates. Sam was wearing dungarees, which was odd, as she typically didn't dress that way. Toby tied a bandana around his forehead, made a jokingly chivalrous point of carrying the heaviest pieces of furniture. The upstairs neighbors were playing their television loudly, a game show or a nature program. I forget which. And we commented on this only in passing, unaware of what a permanent fixture it would turn out to be. By the time we stopped for pizza, the furniture was mostly in place, though we still had to put the bed together, still had to construct 2 of the 3 flat pack bookcase we had bought in a panic on realizing the flat didn't come furnished as previously described. Toby uncorked a second bottle of wine, told a long story about running into Poppy at the train station, about all the issues she seemed to be having with her boyfriend, Dan. Something I found incredibly boring, Sam said, is everyone's conviction that love is different for them, somehow harder Do you know what I mean? I just don't think that it's that complicated, honestly. If you're with the wrong person, it's hard. It's just another way of thinking you're special, the way everyone does when they are a teenager. You think you aren't able to love, except that, of course, you are. You think you aren't able to love correctly or the same as everyone else, except that, of course, you are. You just haven't had a chance to do it yet. You're not special. You're just waiting. That's quite interesting here. Could reflect on this quote. Toby nodded, poured wine into plastic cups. In fairness, babe, I don't think Poppy was saying she's unable to love, just that she hates the way Dan eats with his mouth open. Much of the furniture we had was my mother's. She had died 3 months previously, and people were still not past the point of tilting their heads to one side and nodding sympathetically when I said almost anything at all. I had brought a Welsh dresser from my mother's house, a wine rack. I had brought a Welsh dresser from my mother's house, a wine rack, a large oval mirror. The latter was a mistake. It seemed to haunt me about the flat as I tried to find a suitable place to put it, appearing at times to reflect not me, but my mother's empty house, as though on a time delay. I tapped the second knuckle of a finger lightly against the glass, and it sounded like something knocking to be let in. We had combined our books, our spices, mixed up my table salt with Leah's jars of nutmeg and rosemary and herbs de Provence. We found we had too many table lamps, not enough cutlery. In the chaos of moving our boxes up the stairs, a full set of dishes were smashed. Do you think, Toby said over the pizza, that this is your forever place? Leah rolled her eyes at him, asked how anything could be your forever place when it was only a rental. That's true, Toby said, suddenly narrowing his eyes at Sam. When are you going to buy sorry. That's true, Toby said, suddenly narrowing his eyes at Sama. When are you going to buy us a forever place? Sam snorted, leaned back on her elbows, and surveyed me upside down. Haven't I got a bit of a wife? She said, and laughed. Later on, when Toby and Sam had left, we found ourselves too lazy to put the bed together, and so stacked sofa cushions on the living room floor, curled up with a new internet contract, which neither of us could make sense of, finishing the second bottle of wine. In the dark, the room was strange shaped, shadows feeding my anxiety. I imagined us freshly moved into a place where things might walk about at night, where a knock might sound at the door at any moment, where a hand might emerge from behind the curtains to pull either one of us away. It would be fine, won't it? I asked. Won't it? I asked in the dark, and Leah locked her ankles around mine. I called the center to talk about the therapy bill, and find that once again I can't get through. I put the phone down and think in a blunt and ugly manner that I do not have the patience for this. Leah is still in the bath, so I spoon table salt into a glass of water and take it through to her. She seems happy about this, drinks half of it down in a way which makes me feel vaguely nauseated. before pouring the rest into the bath. I leave Herbie and sit in the space room, researching skin conditions on my phone, more out of a habit than anything, until my battery dies. Getting married was easy. 20 minutes in and out when I decided I wanted to get married. I told Leah, and she started crying when I hadn't expected. I knew you wanted to, she said. I'm not surprised. I'm just crying. Kamit said she was quite startled to know that I'd been the one to do the asking, since I was the one with longer hair. Assumptions. I didn't mean that the way it came out. I didn't mean that the way it came out, she said. I meant to say congratulations. And then she hugged me very hard in a way that moved me a surprising amount. The town hall was having issues with its electrical supply thanks to a workman accidentally running a drill bit through the mains. And so the registrar had lit the room with battery-operated candles, which made everything seem more like a school play than it should have done. This is good, Leah said. Mood lightening. People usually have to pay for this sort of thing. I told her to take it seriously, and she smiled at me. The way her face moved, the way I had to tip my head up a little to look at her, and said that smiled at me and said that she'd never told a joke in her life. In the candle dark, then we got married and came out afterwards to gentle rain and no plans for the rest of the day, which felt like a miracle. Leah suggested we find something to eat and walked us over the road to a place that sold burgers, her hand in my hand like something obvious, something grown from the fabric of my own body and pressing out. The afternoon was strange colored, inconsistent, the way the sky goes dark before a thunderstorm, but the grass is still lit up, and you can't figure out where the light is coming from. Leah, now. The world was different once. Before a century of rain that filled the oceans, sometimes I think about this, the way that things might once have walked about the deepest place without fear of drowning. Sometimes I think of oceans rising faster than it is possible to escape them, of water drawing tight around the boundaries of the land. Jalka sat cross-legged on the floor of the main deck, and for whatever reason, I imagined her sitting by a campfire. I took a torch and set it down by her feet, crouched down opposite to complete the illusion. Now we just need marshmallows to toast, I said, though she only twitched her head, a quick, frustrated gesture, as though I was talking over sometimes she was trying to hear. She was unnervingly still. Beside her, the Saint Brendan figure stood with his face to the wall. It's my birthday, she said, and I looked at her through the upward beam of the torch. I didn't know that, I said. I didn't ask how she could possibly know this either, with no way of recording the time or date, no way of knowing how long we'd been here. We should do something to celebrate. She nodded and didn't say anything further. I could hear Matteo knocking about in the rear chamber, kicking his feet against the benches. He had been growing increasingly irritable, prone to interrupting his own sentences to ask if we could hear a noise complaining. We could hear a noise complaining it was preventing him from thinking clearly. I would hear him moving about when I was trying to sleep and think about my neighbors, mine and Miri's. And the television, they never switched off. Once I woke to find him standing at the foot of my bunk, but when I asked him what he was doing, he apologized quite genuinely and told me he must have drifted off. I can smell it again, Jelka said now, gazing in a seemingly untroubled fashion into the torch beam. She was talking about the unusual smell, the separating meat smell that had saturated all of our clothes by this point. Though we washed and wrung them under the shower spray and hung them out across the benches to dry. I said nothing, and Jelka continued, I wonder if it is actually just us, the smell. I wonder if this is how people smell this far down. I thought of reminding her that we'd both noticed the smell the first time when we were still descending, but found I didn't have the energy to argue. And what about that sound? She said then. What about the talking, the words? Can you hear that? There was nothing, not just then. There had never been any talking, and I couldn't picture what it was she was imagining or thinking, or think of a useful thing to say. Instead, I only commanded her to make a wish, the way one would on a collection of birthday candles, and then to blow on the torch beam, which she did until I switched it off. I want whoever reads this to understand that they're getting what they're getting, which is mainly confusion, because I don't know how to be clear about any of this. Okay. In the dark, I pressed my face against the main deck window, and saw nothing. The blackness seemed another color, sometimes something less than black, altogether more devoid, more dumbfounding. I thought again about falling, imagined us tight in the grip of something that had snatched us down to the place we were already going, and then lifted my cheek from the glass and realized I didn't know how I had come to be here. I had, it appeared, been sleeping, and now I was here. You too? Matteo said, and I turned and found him standing on the doorway from the rear chamber, silhouetted, wide, and rolling his knuckles down along the side of his face. I wasn't here, I said, hearing the illogical of what I had said a moment after I had said it, though Matteo only nodded, crossing to sit at the comms panel and look at me boldly. I know, buddy, he said. And then, do you ever think about how we had a plan, that there were things we were supposed to be doing down here? I blinked at him, tried to pull to the fore of my mind an image of the center, the research project we had prepped for, the concept of something intended and carried out. I looked back towards the main console, dim lights, and the small carved insignia on the top of the panel, the dark squinting eye etched in metal. Matteo watched me for several seconds before leaning back in the chair and nodding. I know, It bothers me too, the way I don't think. I tried to shake my hand to tell him that wasn't what was happening. Phantom fingers at the base of my skull, moving downwards, sunken thoughts. Who had said that? I remembered, but it took me longer than it should. It took me longer than it should have done to dredge the name from the bottom of my mind. I remember we've read this expression that she already it's been already mentioned, but I can't remember. Do you? I can't remember at which point she talked about sunken thoughts. She mentioned that expression before. I can't remember where. Anyway, next chapter, Miri. So these are the last pages today. Things continue. This is something I have always found. Unfortunately, things go on. Leah bathes. It's a bit tricky here. Bathes for approximately 60% of the day. Though this is swiftly becoming something more like 70. I go out and come again. I do my work and fail to do my work and watch movies which I can't follow and which fail to drown and which fail to drown out the noise of the neighbors' TV. When Leah is out of the bath, I try to make her eat, though this is largely unsuccessful. Her appetite, already poor, seems to be dwindling further. I bring her salt dissolved in beakers of water, and this seems to starve off the hard recurring pulse in her neck and shoulders that always sees her back in the bath again before much time has passed. For how little she eats, she doesn't seem to be bearing up too badly, though badly is a relative term these days. There is something hanging over us that I seem to feel most clearly in the mornings, before the haze of my new routine has descended, before I have seen her into the bath and out of it, before I have lifted her arms to soap as gently as possible at the silvering, translucent skin underneath. Sometimes, when I look in the mirror, the eye that has hung in the hall since we moved in, I think I see myself not where I am, but back in my mother's house. Though this is simply a trick of light. I don't feel particularly tired, but nor do I feel particularly anything. Even my bad tooth has stopped giving me grief. The therapist contacts me to ask about a check she received from the center to cover the sessions we have attended so far. It bounced, she says, and asks if I have a second method of payment. It bounced up. It means that probably the check has been refused. It bounced. She says, it bounced, she says, and asks if I have a second method of payment. She tells me that she won't be able to continue until we send her the money, but suggests that if we need to contact her in an emergency, something could probably be worked out. I call the center once. I have managed to get her off the phone, though they seem once again to have gone off grid. The phone no longer clicks onto an automated message after a certain number of rings. Now it simply rings on and on until I set the receiver back down. For the first time since Leah returned, I go to search for the site run by the wives of fictional spacemen. But it has been over 3 months, and I find I cannot recall the address. I Google the center instead and find that the website I was expecting is likewise not there. Only a 404 error message and a suggestion that I check the address before trying again. I shut my laptop and move to make a cup of tea. It occurs to me that I ought to just try visiting the center. I've only been once before, picked Leah up on her return, but now I have misplaced the address. I spent an hour going through papers in vain hopes of finding it and then give up. What after all am I hoping to say if I get there? Can you fix her? Can you give her back again? But better? Imagine ordering a cab and simply asking it to drive round until it comes upon somewhere I recognize. Later on, I will move through the flat, feeling suddenly terrified that each room might cease to exist the moment I leave it. The world is folding over like a book whose past pages I cannot access. I dialed the center and listened to the phone ring out. One afternoon, I am subject to a sudden attack of motivation and insist that Leah comes with me on a walk. She doesn't want to go, but she has been in the bath all day and the drain is clogged with the scum of whatever it is she leaves behind. So I lay out clothes for her and tell her it will help. She moves oddly now, a certain keel to the left, as though a piece of her is somehow unsupported. I wrap her up and tell her she'll enjoy it. The year has turned, the days growing shorter, a fact I seem almost entirely to have missed. I take Leah's arm, and she doesn't resist me, allows me to tower up the hill towards a place we used to walk. There is a wide stretch of common land between the circle of flats and houses that border ours. Grass uninterrupted by the canals which ring so much of the city. We used to walk here a lot when we first moved. Leah desperate for some space and some air between trips, while I was simply happy to accompany her. Look at that, she would say, pointing at nothing. A child flying a kite in the shape of a kestrel, a woman loudly breaking up with a man on the bench by the road. Today she is quiet, goes where I lead her, until suddenly seeming to become unable, dragging downwards on my arm in the slow movement that it takes me too long to realize is a fall. She goes down where she is on the grass, and I don't know what to do or how to get her back to the flat again. A woman passing by with a dash's hand wrapped up in a fuchsia jacket, pauses to ask if my friend is all right. And I tell her yes, without knowing what I'm saying. Let her go without knowing how to ask for her help. Leah lies on the grass where she has fallen, curved into herself like a conch, like something from which a creature might emerge. Get her home again? I couldn't say how. It just happens. As I said before, things go on. I get her into the bath and keep her there until by degrees she seems to feel better. And eventually I manhandle the television into the bathroom, balance it on the toilet seat, and plug it into a long extension cord I have rolled in from the bedroom. I put on Jaws and I ask her to watch it with me. Sit on the mat beside the bath and keep one hand on the side of the tub so she can touch me if she wants to. I think about the first time we watched this movie together, the way she cut herself off in the middle of talking about sharks and told me she didn't want to be boring. She says nothing now, though she seems to follow the movie, flicks water at the back of my head the first time the shark appears. I feel exhausted, a feeling of catching up, a feeling of something finding me. My heart is a thin thing these days, shred of paper blown between the spaces in my ribs. Right. This is the end of our live session today. So we are halfway of the abyssal zone, halfway through. So because next session we will probably finish, if I'm correct. Yeah. So yeah. Yes. Now the center is like has vanished. It feels like they completely disappeared. So here again, we don't have much more information about that. Just the fact that she can't reach them anymore, and that she can't find the website as well. Just vanished. So it becomes more and more suspicious, the fact that now even the center is a place where she can go, although she struggled to reach them before. But I would have thought that with the therapy sessions, somehow things would make sense. We would make sense of Leah's condition and the whole situation, but it's getting even more frustrating because we don't know what's going on. But what gets confirmed more and more is that Leah is even more, or Miri, I think, understand more and more the fact that Leah needs to be in the bath, and that's her natural habitat now, that she is if she wants to share moments with her, it means that she has to do stuff with her in the bath, and or just in sense to have a sense of connection with her. Means that she needs to arrange everything around her, and the fact that and we see that from the fact that she put the television in the bathroom. So it's quite interesting here. Well, I hope you enjoyed this live reading, and hopefully we can start it's a bit tricky to imagine. I don't know the end of this book. Gosh, tell me what if you let me know in the comments if you have any idea of how this book is going to end. Do you think that she's going to keep Leah? Do you think that Miri and Leah will carry on with this kind of life together? I doubt. Hardly believe that Leah will stay in this flat living like that, or that Miri is going to be able to deal with this, or deal with Leah's state. I don't know. It's hard to believe. Right. Well, we'll see. We'll see next week. Thank you so much for listening to this live reading. And make sure you subscribe to the book club to attend our second workshop this Saturday. And also remember that you can purchase the 3-part live workshop of Daisy Jones and the Six on my website store. And I wish you a beautiful end of the day, and I will see you on Monday at 6:30 p.m. Central European Time for session 8. So next week we're finishing the book. There are going to be 3 more sessions left, and we will finally get to the end of this story between Miri and Leah. So we will read pages 156 to 177. So have a beautiful weekend. Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you, Keti. See you tomorrow.